So it's Mother's Day. This is the day when we honor and we celebrate the mothers in our lives, whether it's our own mothers, or it's our wife, or the mother of our children, or our grandmothers, or sisters, or our aunts, or any other woman who filled that kind of motherly role in our lives. For instance, I never had biological children, but I have 4 nieces. And I would like to think that I have had a positive impact on them. That certainly has been my intention. I like to think of myself as the cool aunt. You know, there's a Facebook thing that says, be someone's crazy aunt. I think my brother thinks that's what I am. But, come on, that was funny. I am a mother, however, to George and Lucy. They don't quite understand the concept of Mother's Day because they're too busy celebrating Cat's Day, which is every day, let's face it. So in honor, though, of Mother's Day, part of what we're going to talk about is the divine feminine. Let me explain to you what I mean. Throughout history, females and their ability to give birth has taken on sacred proportions with good reason. I mean, if you think about it, if you didn't know anything about the birds and the bees, and all of a sudden, a woman gave birth to a baby, and you didn't know how it happened, you'd be like, where did that come from? How did that happen? To people who don't understand anything about reproduction, it would have seemed magical. It would have seemed miraculous. It would have seemed divine. So as a result, what has happened is that many cultures, especially back in the day, worshipped women, worshipped mothers as goddesses, as true goddesses. They believed that a woman's ability to give birth made them as close to a deity as anything that they could imagine. So of course the women of those days were honored and revered, and maybe just a little bit feared. I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, wow, she can give birth. I mean, you know, that makes you a little bit freaked out, right? So here it is. Most of these cultures were agriculture-based, right? So they were hunters and not gatherers. They were the next ones. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So their goddesses and their feminine deities were worshipped for the things that had to do with fertility and abundance, because that was of utmost importance to them for their survival. That idea of abundance and that idea of fertility. So some of the fertility goddesses or aspects of the divine that you may have heard of include, this is Aphrodite, but it's also Venus. It's Aphrodite in Greek culture and it's Venus in Roman culture. Okay, there's Diana. There's Gaia. Gaia is all about Mother Earth, you know, and she's always depicted as being, you know, kind of a full-figured woman of substance. Isis from Egypt, and Parvati, of course, from the Hindu cultures. This is just to name a few. So ladies, would you agree with me that we're in pretty good company? Yes? Yes, as goddesses. So the question is, though, what happened? How did women go from being these life givers and goddesses to being what might be described as second-class citizens with not very many rights and privileges? I mean, you all know I'm from the U.S. I don't know how it was in Canada, but women were not allowed to vote until into the 20th century. How did this happen? Well, as cultures began to change and they became less earth-based, the masculine or patriarchal energy became more prevalent. So male qualities like achieving and having physical strength and acquisition and victory became the leading consciousness. And the role of women kind of took a back seat to this more assertive male energy. Guys, I'm not coming down on you. I happen to love male energy. I'm just explaining how this may have happened. Really like male energy. Okay, so... But the female energy that I'm talking about, like the nurturing and the caring and the intuition, the peace and the compassion that come naturally to us, were considered to be weaknesses in society. They were not considered to be assets. And that's been the prevailing consciousness for a really, really long time. But would you agree with me that maybe it's changing? Would you agree that as more enlightened people are waking up, that we're recognizing that there needs to be a need for balance in the world, that there is a need for both energies, the yin and the yang, the earth and the sky, the masculine and the feminine? Would you agree? Can I get an amen to that?
Yeah.
And it is Mother's Day, so we're going to talk about the feminine part of that balance today. But your day is coming next month, so I'll say nice things about you in your physical, your... Okay, so ladies, for you, I would like to share a poem. It's called The Essence of a Woman. Every woman is beautiful. She is the embodiment of the divine feminine, a goddess in human form. A warmth emanates from deep within her being, seeking out those who need most the heat of compassion, nurturing, and love. A call comes to her from the cosmos to remember who she is, to honor the sacredness of her spirit. She is unto herself, yet deeply connected to the ancient sacred energies of this earth and the cosmos. She stands strong throughout the course of time, even as history has sought to bring her down. She is strong, courageous, and willing to stand firm in the beliefs of her heart. So ladies, as you go through this day, and that's for all of us, this is rather Mother's Day, but it's also Woman's Day. As you go through this day, this year, appreciate who you are. You are a goddess in form. You are a goddess in form. Ladies, touch yourself here and say, I am a goddess in form.
I'm a goddess in form.
Now turn to somebody next to you, preferably a male, and say, I am a goddess in form. And don't you forget it. Yeah. Okay, so now, let's talk about our moms, okay? Let's talk about our moms. My own sweet mom, Shirley Campbell, has been gone for almost 9 years now, and I miss her every day. As with many mother-daughter relationships, it changed through the years. You know, it used to be like parent and child, but as we both matured, we became friends. And I knew that I could count on her to tell me the truth, to give me good advice, to listen to me, and almost always take my side when people were mean to me. And when she didn't take my side, she would lovingly point out maybe where my perspective might be a little bit off and help me see things different. So that became the relationship that we developed. So the question is, did she do everything perfectly? Was she right every time, all the time? No. But I always knew that she loved me. And she loved me unconditionally. She couldn't help herself. Not because I'm so darn lovable, but because it's who she was. She was a mom. It is part of the cosmic job description for mothers. So I love this quote by Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. He said, the moment a child is born, the mother is also born. She never existed before. The woman existed, but the mother never. A mother is something absolutely new. Isn't that interesting? And the truth is, there is no manual for being a parent. There isn't a guidebook, this is how you do it. It is the ultimate on-the-job training. It is learn as you go. And sometimes you make mistakes. And sometimes you get it wrong. I have a colleague of mine, you guys actually may have, I think he's been here to speak a couple times, Dr. James Golden. Yeah, okay. He's considered to be kind of an expert in forgiveness work. And he was counseling somebody one day, and this person had had a terrible childhood, terrible. And he blamed his parents for everything that had gone wrong in his life. And it was true that the parents were not very good. They were not great. But the way my colleague described it and shared with us in a lesson was very eye-opening for me. He said to this man, it sounds as if your parents weren't very skilled at being parents. It sounds as if your parents were not very skilled at being parents. And isn't that a beautiful way of putting it? Instead of saying that they were bad or they were mean or they were abusive, they weren't very skilled. He said if they could have been more skilled, they would have been. Think about that. If they had known better, if they had better skills, they would have responded differently. But again, life does not come with an instruction manual. So we grow and we evolve and we learn and we become skilled to the best of our ability, usually because somebody else has provided an example. Yes? Can I get an amen to that? I want you to tell you, this was mind-blowing for me when I first understood this. Even our parents change. Just like I'm not the same person that I was a few years ago, neither was my mom. The idea that parents could change, that they weren't stuck being exactly the same person that I thought they were when I was 5 years old, was absolutely mind-blowing for me. To think that my parents were also learning and growing, that they also were here to express their divine selves in their special and unique way. Wow. Yeah? Wow? Your parents, my parents, were on or are on their own spiritual path. And they are fulfilling their life's curriculum, which also includes being a parent. And part of that life's curriculum, part of that lesson, is to teach their children how life works to the best of their ability. So a loving parent will set the very best example that they can. Some parents were better at it than others. They teach us right from wrong. They teach us good from bad. And then, and all of you who are parents know this, all of you who are mothers know this, you have to give your children the freedom to figure it out on their own. Am I right? Those of you who are parents, you can tell your child over and over and over again not to touch the oven because it's hot and they're going to get burnt. And you're going to have some children who believe you and don't go anywhere near the oven. And then you're going to get some that are going to touch the oven because they cannot help themselves. They've got to figure it out for themselves. Can I, any oven touchers here? Well, the same thing is true, folks, for our relationship with the universe. We have been all given this incredibly abundant life, and we've been given the freedom to choose how to use it. Let me show you what Ernest Holmes said about that. Those of you who are new, Ernest Holmes is our founder. He wrote, "The power of choice with which man has been endowed is either his greatest blessing or his greatest curse. Properly understood, it can lift him to the heights. Misunderstood, it can drag him to the depths. He is free to choose anything which he wishes, but he must accept the responsibility for his choices, because inexorable law will create his experiences according to his choices." We are at choice how we are going to be in this world, whether we're going to hold on to something from our past or whether we're going to let it go. We're going to choose whether to have life-affirming thoughts and choices, therefore we have life-affirming experiences, or we're going to choose to be out of alignment with truth. Sometimes we don't know that that's what we're choosing, but it's still happening. And when we are out of alignment with our truth, we get burned. Yeah? So here's the beauty of this, however. No matter where we are, and no matter what choices we are making, we are always free in that moment to make a different choice, to make a different decision, and have a different result. Every time, all the time. I was going to put it up there, but it's kind of corny, but you know that saying that says God allows U-turns? That's what I'm talking about. We may be heading in a direction that is not serving us at any moment, at any time. We can turn around and make a different decision, make a different choice. So one of my favorite teaching stories, believe it or not, even though I'm so not a Bible person, but one of my favorite teaching stories is the prodigal son. Now, the prodigal son is actually a story about a man and his sons, but it is also a story about unconditional love, which is an attribute, certainly an attribute of mothers and motherhood. So that's why I'm telling it on Mother's Day. Well, yeah, go figure. But I'm going to tell it in the more traditional way, kind of, sort of. So, so this man has two sons, right? He's a wealthy man. He has two sons. One of them is very well behaved and hardworking, and the other one is kind of a wild child, all right? And the wild son decides that he wants to go out and sow his wild oats, right? So he goes to the dad, and he goes, "I'd like to have my inheritance now, thank you very much. I'm going to go and live my life." So he goes to the town, and he lives a very wild life, okay? He drinks, and he knows women, and he eats pork, all of these things that were. Pretty soon, he's completely out of money. He's got no place to stay. This is how they actually describe it in the Bible. He's laying with the pigs. Now, if you understand Judaism, that's like the worst thing in the world, because pigs were unclean, right? And he's sleeping, I was going to say sleeping with the pigs, but he's laying with the pigs. And he wakes up, and he's like, my life is out of control. Anybody? And he wants to go home, but he's so ashamed of the life that he's lived. But he decides he's going to go home, and how it describes is he's kind of walking down the lane, and the father sees him and runs down the lane and throws his arms around him and hugs him, and "My son has returned. Kill the fatted calf, we're going to have a party," right? That's the story. The prodigal had been making choices that didn't serve him, and his life was miserable. And yet, when he changed his mind, when he decided to do something different, he was welcomed back with open arms, unconditionally. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Making sense to anybody? Okay. When he chose to remember, become one with who he is, the truth of his being, he became whole again. But that's not the end of the story. The good son, who stayed home and worked and did everything he was supposed to do, was kind of pissed off. Because, like, the father threw with the other son, like, this great party, right? And he's like, wow, you know, I did it right. Anybody? How come he gets the fatted calf when I'm doing all the right things? And the father says, don't be mad, don't be upset. I love your brother and I missed him. But I also love you. And everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. It is the perfect metaphor for unconditional love. Whether you've gone off and spent your inheritance, or whether you stayed home and work, you are loved. It's the perfect metaphor for God, for mothers, for fathers. Because the truth is, most mothers will allow their prodigals to come home. Mine did, you know? It's mom's nature, right? And it's father's nature to provide for them. That's their nature. But God is represented by both. And God allows us to come home by coming back into alignment with who we really are. All we have to do is realize our divinity and to claim it as our own. The prodigal son is everybody's story. It's your story, it's my story, right? We've all been the prodigal. Can I get an amen?
Yep.
We've all been the good brother. Can I get an amen?
Yep.
We've all been the father who loves our child unconditionally. Can I get an amen? We have all of us lived every part of the prodigal. And we have experienced unconditional love of the universe. And today, that unconditional love of the universe is disguised as mom. Mamas,